We're on.
All right, this is the Planning Commission meeting to be held in Greenfield Common Council Chambers at Greenfield City Hall on Tuesday, January 14th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Would you please call the roll?
Mayor Knightsky,
Present.
Alderperson Kastner,
Present.
Denise
Green lights.
Collins,
Present.
Michael Braswell is excused, Steve Rogers excused, Brian Weiss,
Present.
Christine Helene,
Present.
Don Carlson is excused, and Bob Krentz.
Present.
Okay, so this evening, two of our regular members are gone, so Mr. Krantz, an alternate, can vote as a regular.
I get more points for this.
And you don't have to sit so far away if you don't want to. Thoughts and prayers go out to Don Carlson. Don donated some money to the ice rink that's at Conkle Park, went ice skating and unfortunately fell and had to have surgery today. So thoughts and prayers go out to Don. Thank him for his support, and that wasn't good. Item 2, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the December 10th, 2019
Motion to approve. I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Lee, second by Commissioner Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4A and 4B is a special use permit for a proposed Verizon wireless communications antenna to be located at the YMCA, located at 11311 West Howard.
Do you want to do number 3?
Oh, I forgot that. Sorry.
Sorry to
Discussion
interrupt.
regarding last common council meeting. Sorry, I missed it.
The last Common Council meeting in December, there was a public hearing for the rezoning, the comprehensive land use plan for the Great Life project, and it was denied by the Common Council with a 3-2 vote. The comprehensive land use plan amendment was denied. Because of that, they didn't even go into the discussion for rezoning because you can't rezone without the comp plan. So Mr. Petrowski is regathering, thinking about if a different strategy possibly or alternate plan, and that's all I know so far for that project.
I have not talked to him since the meeting. I don't know if you did once. Okay, item 4A, B, and C all relate to, well, let's do them one by one. 4A and 4B are site special use permit for the Verizon wireless communications antenna that I mentioned before at YMCA, along with site landscaping and the architectural plans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item was before the Plan Commission in 2018, and Plan Commission approved it, and a public hearing was held. However, permits and construction never commenced. Therefore, the special use permit expired. So this is
I make a motion.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's basically.
To reapprove.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Kastner. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion.
who was the motion?
I guess
We can, yeah,
I made-
Mike, I'm
Okay,
second.
got it. Thank you.
Okay, 5A and 5B looks like the same kind of issue
Mm-hmm.
at Bill's Auto Tech.
No, a little different.
A little bit different. Special use review for U.S. Cellular to upgrade equipment and replace antennas at the Telecommunications Tower, Bill's Auto Service Center, 4737 South 108th Street, and site and architectural plans for same.
This is a different one than we just approved.
This is for the South Tower. I believe last month was the North Tower. So, I mean, essentially the same thing.
I'd make a motion to
Yeah.
approve the item as presented.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Kastner. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, master sign plan for Rustero Mazda of Greenfield, an existing business located at 3520 South 108th Street, submitted by Sign Effects, Inc. and Rustero.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So the applicant is proposing a master signage plan to allow them more square footage than would be allowed by code, which is the 224 square feet, and would be limited to one wall sign and one monument sign. So this would allow them greater flexibility to be able to change out signs under the maximum square footage allowed in the master signage plan, should they choose to do that in the future without having to come back before the plan commission. So the applicant is proposing a total of 250.72 square feet of signage, including a monument sign along Highway 100, 2 wall signs facing Highway 100, and a service sign facing north along Morgan Avenue, and then some directional signs related to the service and entrance to the site. And staff recommends approval.
Entertain a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll make the motion to approve. Second
Oh,
by
I'm sorry.
Alderperson
I'll second.
Commissioner Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7 is certified survey map to recombine 2 existing parcels at 6201 and 6269 South 27th Street and 6279 South 27th Street. submitted by JJ Olay, I'm probably pronouncing that improperly, doing business as College Venture JV LLC.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So these two parcels are located on the corner of 27th and West College Avenue. The larger parcel contains the shopping center shown there. The smaller parcel had previously contained an Equitable Bank. WSDOT took it over to make improvements to the intersection there. So it's essentially a remnant parcel that the owners of the shopping center have acquired from WSDOT. The plan, I think, from previous proposals was that eventually they would retain this parcel from WSDOT and do this CSM, Certified Survey Map, to be able to redevelop that corner. So that's what they're proposing now. The existing shopping center would contain 5.2 acres. The new recombined parcel 2 would be about 0.94 acres. Both parcels would be zoned PUD. The northern boundary of the Lot 2 does cut through the existing entrance off of 27th, so a cross-access easement would need to be in place prior to us recording the CSM. The applicant knows that and has no issues with that and understands that that's part of the proposal. Lot 1 it does have some pretty high-intensity users with the fitness center there, but it does meet the requirements in the code with the existing users for the two shopping centers there of the 329 spaces. So even with taking more square footage for Lot 2, it still meets, Lot 1 would still meet the code. So staff recommends approval.
Make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Weiss. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 8A and 8B are the special use review for La Chinampa, I hope I pronounced that right, Mexican food. Proposed change of tenancy for the existing restaurant located at 5442 West Forest Home, as well as a site plan review for that same restaurant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a tenant change which triggers special use review, and if the Plan Commission so finds, no public hearing required. This item was before the Plan Commission in July, just the most recent, and we have another tenant change. They're proposing a continuation of a Mexican-themed restaurant, and the hours of operation will be 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. It's, for the most part, a carry-out location. There'll also be cooking food for a food truck that they have in the city of Milwaukee. And as far as site review goes, the last time this was before the Plan Commission, we did ask the property owner, the landlord, to replace the area between the carriage walk between the curb and the sidewalk that was concrete or pavement, excuse me, and change that to grass, which he has done so, and has done, for the most part, some cleanup in the back. I did send him an email, just a reminder to make sure that materials that are laying around be picked up by his tenants. Staff recommends this be expedited to next week's Common Council meeting.
Are the applicants here?
Yes, they are.
The owner's not, though. The owner's not here, right, of the property?
No.
I, quite frankly, just assumed all the food truck people just cook their stuff at home. You have to have a licensed spot?
Awesome.
Good enough?
Do you have seafood enchiladas? With red. Okay. I'd entertain a motion to approve the review and the site plan and note that the site looks incredibly better than it did when it started. So I guess that's a motion. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Weiss. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. I look forward to eating those. I love enchiladas. All right, nobody cares. All right, item 9A.
I'm excited about your diet.
Are you? It's really healthy, good food too, I've been told. So, 9A and B are special use permit for Bargain Thrift Mart, a proposed resale shop to be located at 4450 South 108th Street, and the site plan review for Bargain Thrift Mart the proposed resale shop at that same location.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So the applicant is proposing a used merchandise store, which is a special use in the C4 zoning district, which this parcel is zoned C4. The applicant's proposing leasing 10,000 square feet on the north end of the building, approximately right here. The business was founded in 2003. They primarily get their merchandise through through the moving and storage business. They expanded in 2013 to have a warehouse in West Allis, but haven't had retail sales. So this is them branching out into customer retail sales. Their proposed hours of operation are 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week, and they anticipate having 4 to 5 employees on site. The parking required for the thrift store is 50 spaces based on the 10,000 square feet and 5 spaces per 1,000 square feet as required by the code. The total off-street parking required for the entire site is 114 spaces. They currently have 74 spaces on site, so they would need a waiver from the Common Council for a parking shortage. And just to note that the applicant will have signs posted indicating that there are no donations accepted on site. So hopefully that will curb any dumping of garbage or donated materials on site. So they plan on having signage located at the front and the rear of the building to hopefully limit items being dropped off on site.
There's no place on Highway 100 drop off stuff, though.
Can you not at St. Vincent de Paul? Do they not accept?
That was a joke.
Oh, okay. I
actually.
was like, yeah, there's a few. As part of the special use, we do look at the site conditions. There were some conditions that need to be taken care of. The fence along the rear of the building, which separates the parcel from Kulwicki Park, is falling over and should either be removed or replaced. There were 2 refuse containers that were outside of the enclosures, and the enclosures are in pretty poor condition. The refuse enclosure here is flaking paint, and the doors appear to not be in great condition. Again, the picture on the bottom, you can see the doors appear to be in pretty poor condition, and the fence again is failing. So the refuse enclosure should be replaced to be large enough to be able to contain the number of garbage containers that need to be on site. This is the second enclosure, which is closer to the St. Vincent de Paul and former Walmart site. The doors again appear to be falling off and should be repaired. There's some deteriorating asphalt that should be taken care of and patched. And then there is an approved landscape plan from 2003. There are a large number of plant material that's missing from the approved landscape plan, which should be replaced according to the 2003 plan. Staff recommends a public hearing be scheduled for February 19th.
Just a couple of quick things.
The owner and the tenant here?
Okay.
The tenant's here.
It's not just a couple things. There used to be a secondhand thrift store in the building. And despite popular lore, I was not responsible for closing it. I mean, that was, they said that, there was a lot of rumors out there that somehow the city was involved in putting St. Vincent de Paul in, and they didn't like this other place, and that's why I made it my personal ambition in life to close the secondhand thrift store. That wasn't true. I just want to be clear about that. I don't have an objection to the use within the facility because there was one in there before, and the parking requirements themselves, there were never, while the center could be busy with the bird food place and.
Can you come to the mic?
Yeah, you have to come up to the mic. The other thing that, with regard to the fence, so the city took over operational and maintenance responsibilities for Kulwicki Park to the east. There are a lot of kids, during the Little League season and everything that climb up that hill.
Okay.
When I heard repair or replace, or remove or replace, I mean, that fence has to be replaced.
Well, the building is supposed to close a week from Friday with new owners.
So it hasn't been closed.
It hasn't been closed yet. I've met with the people that have the contract to purchase it, and their plan is to redo the fence and redo the dumpster enclosures.
So that'll be,
Because they're way too big for the space anyway.
That, the ownership will change by the time, council? I didn't do the math.
Yeah, it's supposed to close the 24th.
Okay.
I talked to the broker this morning.
I mean, it's critical for the fence.
Yep.
We're having Little League opening day and Arbor Day. There's
Arbor Day is coming there too, which is looking for
So
donations
there's a
for
lot of
trees.
stuff going on, so,
Okay.
and a lot of kids play on the bottom of the hill, they climb up the hill, and you don't want them digging around in your dumpsters and throwing it on the hill, which is kind of what they do sometimes. There's no donations at the site?
No donations. I own all the
That was
merchandise.
another issue with these secondhand retailers. Sometimes they have drop-off centers or people just kind of drop it off. It's really, and we talked about this earlier internally, but it's really important that there isn't any of that stuff.
Yep, there's no donations. We're gonna have cameras outside of the property and everything like that too, so.
And the pavement, is the pavement issue, that's a pretty significant one too.
Okay.
It's important that, and
I-
the landscaping plan.
Have you forwarded this to the new property owners?
Yes, I have.
And they said,
They're willing to do what it's gonna take, cause they're moving their business into there too. So,
And if
they
you-
don't need to come before us for that?
No, it's a permitted use.
Carpet store, flooring?
yeah, flooring store.
What kind of merchandise again would you be having? Apparel?
Yeah, it'd be clothes, housewares, furniture, stuff like that,
Okay.
tools.
And your inventory comes from just from
Comes from the self-storage foreclosure industry, the,
delinquent storage?
yep, the moving and storage industry, and then we do some, business liquidations, and we also buy, estates.
Okay. Thank you.
Not the TV show that we watch.
Just like it, but nothing like it.
Okay, entertain a motion.
Question before you do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I assume our friends at the PD reviewed this and had no issues with the use?
I haven't heard anything from PD.
Yeah, so the concern is that with most secondhand retailers, especially in the gold and jewelry business and personal effects, with the heroin and opioid epidemic,
Yeah,
there's a lot of things that get stolen.
And-
There's a reporting responsibility.
and I won't be buying anything off the street. It's
So,
all stuff that is acquired that way. We won't,
The minute should probably reflect that, that this isn't a place where you purchase things.
yep, we're not gonna buy anything off the street there.
Okay, because there are reporting requirements, and it's amazing how much stuff gets recovered that way, so, okay. Okay, that,
Good question.
Yeah.
very good.
We're ready now, Mike.
And
Yes, sir.
make a motion to approve. Second by Commissioner Lean, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion
Thank you.
carries.
Good luck.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, item 10 is site architectural plans for medical, weight loss, and wellness. A proposed weight loss clinic located at 4666 South 35th Street. This is on 35th and Layton on the northeast corner. It's been a vacant.
Yep, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So the applicant is Medical Weight Loss and Wellness Incorporated. They've purchased the parcel, which is 1.36 acres. It's zoned C3, which permits the Diet and Weight Loss Center as a permitted use, so they're coming before us for site and architectural plans on the existing site. For the site plan, the only real modification that they've proposed is they plan on repaving what had previously been a drive to the lower parking lot. It's been vacant and I think underused or not used for a number of years. Essentially, there's plant material growing on it, trees growing out of this former drive and parking lot. But they plan on cleaning that up and repaving it to utilize the lower parking lot here. It's a pretty significant grade change from the upper parking lot to the lower parking lot. But that's essentially the only major change that they've planned for the site. For the architecture changes, they anticipate closing the entrance that's on 35th Street. And there's currently a set of double doors here, so they plan on removing that entrance and siding it to match the existing siding near the opening. They want to paint the exterior. They haven't indicated a color yet, but they plan on painting the exterior and then removing the shingles from the door openings and replacing the roof on the awnings with a painted standing seam roof. The site appears to have been vacant for a while, so there are some site conditions that should be approved. Again, this was the drive heading down to the lower parking lot. There's trees and grass overgrowing the existing drive here. You can see again small trees growing from what had previously been been the drive, so that should all be cleaned up. There were a few issues with the retaining walls. This is on the north side of the building where the mechanical units are housed. It appears to be separating from the wall and should be shored up to make sure that it's not moving and that it's structurally sound. This is the stairway going up to the upper parking lot from the lower parking lot. And again, this is separating from the concrete steps. And also this retaining wall appears to be separating and should be taken a look at to make sure it's shored up and that there isn't any movement. There's a crack here and then a crack on the walkway to the entrance on 35th that will be closed up, but it's still a pretty significant bump in the concrete that should be taken care of to prevent any tripping hazards. But with those in mind, staff recommends the overall site and architectural plans. There isn't a site lighting plan or a landscaping plan on file, so staff recommends that those are submitted for approval. There should be a lot more in the way of landscaping on site. There currently isn't really any landscaping per se on site, so staff would like to bring the site up to standards in the zoning code for the landscaping and for the site lighting plan. But staff recommends expediting this to the January 21st Common Council meeting.
Yeah, I mean, the most critical thing with regard to a lot of this stuff is code compliance, building code compliance, so ADA compliance, accessibility, all those kinds of things. So when those repairs, which are all necessary, are made, I'm sure the inspectors will make sure it's done right?
Yep.
Building's been vacant for at least 2 or 3 years, I think, right? So it's a good thing. I'd entertain a motion.
What are they doing with that concrete sidewalk that's gonna lead to nowhere?
As far as I know, on the site plan, it's still indicated as being there. There is a stoop at the entrance, which is
Wouldn't it
going
make
to stay.
sense to remove it, especially since they're having equipment come in to do the parking lot and back?
You would?
I mean,
Potentially.
it's,
Unless the plan is to open that at any point in the future, then it would need to be,
well, then you can
New
put it
walkway
back in,
plan.
I guess. What colors did they indicate? Because that could be problematic as well. I think orange and fuchsia or,
urgent. Yeah, they haven't indicated any colors as of yet.
The code requires, the code requires earth tones, right? So, the code requires earth tones?
Yeah, and it would go forward through earth tones.
So,
As far as the front sidewalk, can I address?
yeah, please.
absolutely.
Answer a few questions. As far as the front sidewalk is concerned, their intent is to actually put a gate in front of that so nobody uses or walks that direction except for their staff. They actually may use it just as a patio to have lunch or sit for a break. So they don't want to take that stoop out or the
Well, I wasn't
sidewalk.
talking about the stoop. I was figuring
So the sidewalk, we would level the crack. Most of what we plan to do, based on budget, was just clean things up outside. We didn't anticipate having to do a full civil plan for the exterior. Is that something you guys are requiring? Or requesting? I don't think we're required to have a full civil plan, but landscape plan was also noted on here as well. So, I mean, if we didn't do any work
At the end
outside,
of the day, the city is most concerned that it looks good,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's probably your concern as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's not the most presentable building in the state it's in, so, but the colors would be grays and earth tones on the exterior, which we can submit that with our permits, or do we have to resubmit that through?
Contact
I'm
contact
sure.
them and they'll provide it to the common council, which
Okay.
ultimately votes on this, right?
Yeah.
So, and you'll want to do that relatively quickly, I think.
Do you have any ideas if you're gonna plant any shrubs, trees, or anything?
Well, the
Landscaping?
intent was to beautify it to some extent, but obviously there's budget restrictions as far as, I mean, initially she was thinking that, she didn't want to do anything on the outside until she had money to do that, and this is the owner of the property. So we recommended that we fix up that pavement though, because we thought that it was not stable. So as for the sake of making it safe, we wanted to do that. And as well as there's some of those pavers or the retaining wall, we noticed the same thing you guys did when you looked at it. But we're going to take it apart and put it back together in a stable fashion. So we weren't going to really change anything, if you know what I mean. It was more or less trying to just restore it so that it's safe.
I mean,
What are
ju-
Biggest things you have to replace is some of the steps on the back from the lower parking lot up that, some of
The steps actually were in relatively decent shape, except for that one cracked one, which we would repair. The steps were good. They put some blocking against the side of those steps that seemed to be separating. So we would put a new foundation under that and shore that up and fix it properly. So we were planning a landscaping, there's a landscaping budget in mind, so, you know, we would submit, based on your recommendation, a landscape plan that shows that. But I just question whether we need a full civil drawing on that with elevations. Anybody know?
I don't, I wouldn't imagine engineering would require a full civil set for the exterior plans that are changed.
Okay, cool. No, that's
you're
good.
essentially bringing everything that you have up to compliance, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to the parking lot?
Yeah, per code. I mean, and when you say compliance, I mean, we're just resurfacing it. We're not actually changing the drive in any way,
That's
shape, or
what we're-
form.
You're actually putting a layer of asphalt or no?
Yeah, we're gonna tear,
paint.
we're gonna grind the top off and put a whole new layer on there, so it's nice and
The
stable.
entire or just the back part?
Just the back part. The upper section's in pretty good shape. Needs some striping.
I agree.
Yeah,
I mean, as a condition of occupancy, it'll have to be code compliant, right?
yeah.
We're not making them curb it either.
No, we're not making, there's no need to keep this. Some of the old days curbs were important to keep the water on the side and go in a hole, right? Now the trend is to have the water drain off.
Sheet
and
drain.
Sheet drain into the
There's
grass.
a stormwater catch
There is one.
basin in the lower level, and that's tied into the storm system. So we would leave that all, make sure all the grading stays kind of as was intended from original.
The other thing to note is that Milwaukee County is redoing Layton Avenue. They're reconstructing in 2021.
Was that right?
Yeah, so there will be a sidewalk along Layton Avenue.
Oh,
And you
okay.
may want to consider, you know, some kind of access from there to your building at some point.
Okay.
That's something that can happen in the future,
Oh, that sounds good.
okay? Anything else? I'd make a motion to approve the item as presented. So by the common council, you kind of need your palette for the colors
Yeah, we can get that. So we'll submit it back through, just,
through Christie or Andrew over there on the
Okay.
end and planning
Okay.
upstairs.
sounds good.
If you have a landscaping plan, I mean, it doesn't have to be, you know,
I know the perfect guy. He can draw it up, make it look great, and we'll do
that's,
that.
I mean, we just want the site to look good, right?
Yeah,
Because
good.
it's been sort of out of commission for quite a while.
Yeah.
And
Could
it really
almost add
needs
it
to
to
be
that.
brought up to standards again.
Yeah.
Okay,
Take
Got
that
it.
drawing and add things to it.
Yep, sounds good.
very good. Did we have a motion?
I thought we did.
You were starting one, but you.
I'll make the
got it.
motion to
Sorry.
approve, conditioned on the stuff that has to still be presented to them.
Yep.
For the common council meeting next Tuesday,
Okay,
right? So you'll be busy this week?
absolutely. And so we get that over to you, and then where does it go from there, if you don't mind me asking?
So next Tuesday is the common council meeting, and this is a recommending body, so everything that happens here is a recommendation to the
Okay.
common council. It's kind of a consent agenda, so it
Sure,
goes to the
yeah.
common council. And unless there's some major heartburn, generally speaking, it's voted on there, and usually with great success.
Okay,
But you'll need that stuff, because up there, and I don't vote, the common council members vote, Alderperson Kastner is one of 5.
okay,
They will ask for it.
okay,
So if you don't have it, you don't want to be flailing around,
yeah. All right, sounds good.
okay?
Great.
Is it the motion?
Motion was made,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Weiss, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Just for the record, alternate Commissioner Braswell came in at 6:11, I think it was. 6:12. Do note on our website this week, Alderperson Kastner pointed it out, that it was on our website, under the calendar, it was listed at 6:30 start, and we changed it over the weekend. So I apologize to you. We did change it Monday morning bright and early when we found out about that. We have this new minutes and agenda software program, and we're still trying to, so, thank you for coming. All right. The next one is 11A and 11B. This is I think the third month in a row.
Third month.
We still don't have everything.
It's a special use permit and a site plan review for holistic home and hospice and existing home healthcare service located at 8777 West Forest Home Avenue.
Yep, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So as we've kind of been over the previous couple months, the home healthcare services is a special use in the C1 zoning district. The applicant currently is in the space. They lease 3,770 square feet within the multi-tenant building. providing personal and supportive care, end-of-life care, home hospice.
They don't do it on site, they
They,
provide the
they,
staff that
they
goes
provide the
somewhere.
staff that,
Can we go back to that one? Because a
Yeah.
question in my mind came up, and that's the city boundaries, and that's the property line.
correct.
Who owns the land in between?
It's a gap,
It is a gap, a property gap.
so a gap that should probably be resolved in this process. Just,
I would
That could be,
think.
that could be a condition of approval for the
Probably.
special use permit. So the business currently employs 13 people on site. They do have 150 people off-site providing the care. Their hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday to Friday. Business has been located in the building since 2017 without occupancy, so we're kind of cleaning up that. And prior to getting occupancy, they do require the special use permit because it's a C1 zoning district. They also have expired building electrical and plumbing permits that are outstanding that need to be cleaned up. They did have a sign permit that needed to be taken out. They have done that, so they have taken out the sign permit. So good on the signage now. They are required, the business requires 13 parking spaces. The rest of the building requires 9 for a total of 22 parking spaces on site. With the site plan that they've provided, they indicate that there would be 21 parking spaces. This is the site plan that they've proposed. It does include some modifications to the existing site. They are proposing an entrance on the south side of Forest Home here. That would be a one-way drive in to get into these angled parking spaces on the north and south. So this would be a one-way drive coming through here to the circle to be able to exit out onto Forest Home. They're adding the striping, first of all, which there's currently no off-street parking striping, so they're indicating where the off-street parking spaces would be on the existing impervious surface, the existing asphalt. They're also proposing adding an additional 9 spaces. There would be 5 spaces right here and 4 spaces up in the circle drive, and adding a sidewalk next to the parking spaces here to get from the parking lot up to the front of the building. They've proposed a landscape plan, which just adds some shrubbery, a little bit of landscaping along the circle drive, but staff would like to see additional landscaping. There's areas to be, that could have some shrubbery, some trees located here. The drive in the center currently has gravel in there that could potentially all be removed and replaced with shrubs and mulch to make it look a little bit nicer. There's also some base planting that could be taken care of up against the building where there currently isn't anything right now. So staff would like to see some additional landscaping. Staff would also like to see a sidewalk included from the refuse enclosure here. There's a personnel door, but they would just be walking in the drive. Staff would like to see a sidewalk connecting that to the existing or the proposed sidewalk here. As indicated in months past, there were some site conditions that needed to be taken care of. Some of those have been addressed to varying degrees. There's a temporary fix here and here to prevent cars from driving onto the grass. It's kind of a haphazard fix, but it is
haphazard fix.
a haphazard fix for the
It's
time
just
being.
not
They
surviving.
have added some cold patch to the parking lot to address some of the asphalt issues. They've taken down some of the dead ash trees along the property line. However, a large number of the branches are still on site and haven't been taken off. So the rest of the trees that are dead should be removed, and all of the branches and dead trees should be taken off of site. So staff recommends revised site plans addressing some of the issues that were addressed tonight and that were brought up in the staff report. And staff would like to receive that prior to the public hearing, showing those changes requested, and then some additional landscaping to bump it up to what is required by the code, with that work to be completed by the end of 2020. Staff would also like a letter from the applicant addressing that some of the other remaining site issues are taken
They
care
not
of.
responded yet?
No, they have.
Okay.
The applicant is here this evening,
The owner's here?
the owner.
That's the owner or the business? Please.
All right. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Oh, they
You're
were
the,
just
you're
asking
the
if you were here.
operator of the business or the,
Yes, I'm the owner and actually operator of the business as well. It's like Andrew said, we run a home care and a hospice company. This is actually a 6th year of business and our 3rd year in Greenfield in this new location. Currently serve about 160 patients in the Milwaukee, Greenfield, and 9 different counties actually. So for both home care and hospice.
So, you know, you guys, whether it was you or the previous owner or somebody took out permits and never did the work, and the site was never kind of brought up to speed the way it should have been. You know that, right? And this isn't meant to, you know, in some way crucify you or to, you know, publicly shame you, but the reality is the site needs to be brought up to, right?
So what we're looking for, if we're talking about the outside of what needs to be done, we have an architect that is actually in communication with Andrew.
Right, we saw the pictures that were up here are representative of the pictures from your architect, I think. You understand you have to do those things, though, right?
Correct. That's what we're intending to do.
I just want to make sure, right?
Yeah, and the reason we're waiting is to make sure that it's approved first before we can initiate whatever the drawing is. So the goal is to wait outside of winter because we use asphalt, and it's very, very difficult to actually have a work done with asphalt in the winter. So
Right,
at which point in time,
Okay.
sure.
Just want to make sure you understand that just because there's a plan, if there is a plan, that it needs to be followed.
Sure.
And that could potentially have a traumatic impact on your business because the condition for your use is that you complete the plan. And if you don't complete the plan, that's usually a bad thing because it violates the condition of your use. I just want to make that, you know.
Sure. So it's not only intention, the purpose is we own the building and we want to develop it to as much as it can increase the value of the property. And if that includes renovating the building and making sure it gets a better value, not only for us, but also in the community that is involved, then yes, we do not object to that.
Okay. Can I ask you one dumb question?
No,
Did you
go ahead.
Did you paint the green, orange, and blue on the top?
Um,
Or was that somebody else that did that? I was just curious where that, I just noticed that it used to be a State Farm building and it used to be red.
Red.
And then,
all red?
Correct. So it used to be red all across. And if you look at a logo, unfortunately, I can show you one of that. But those are the colors that are representative of our logo.
I was just curious where, okay,
Sure.
okay, that's it.
Now, Andrew, I saw the parking permit, you think you can get 21 spots, is that reasonable, you think? Or is it more closer that maybe to go like 19 or 18, just so you have decent-sized parking? Now, this may not be to scale some of the spots, that's why I was just questioning.
Yeah, engineering also had a question about that, especially the parking spaces on the drive. Some of those didn't appear to be drawn to scale. So that was a recommendation from engineering to have, with the revised plan, have those drawn to dimension to make sure that there are enough spaces. And staff's feeling is we would rather have a few fewer spaces that are safer than to try to cram in more spaces than are necessary.
And like some of the, like the one that's right next to where the dumpster path is, I'm not sure that'd be a viable spot if you have a car parked there, then
Well, you can plan your garbage pickup.
exactly.
Yeah,
It just like, I'd rather have less and have it safer, that's all.
right.
Okay, so you're gonna do this stuff?
We definitely
I mean,
would.
if it's approved, you're gonna do it?
If it was approved, we will get it done because the next goal of what our business plan is, currently, we're the only one occupying the building, and there's about 1,500 square foot that is unoccupied, and we're looking to put a non-for-profit organization in there. So that amount of parking may be beneficial to adding another business in that location for the future purpose. And so, yes, we would work on that and make those changes to the best of.
Have you applied for the permit to put the driveway approach on Forest Home Avenue?
That may not
No.
happen, that's the other.
No, we have not applied for the permit for that new entrance. Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah,
No, because we're waiting first to see what, if it'll be approved by the city, and then we'll go on to the next phase of applying for the next. Now, if it's not approved by the county, because Andrew was mentioning that that's a county road, then we would have to submit another drawing that would not take into that effect.
Can I make a suggestion that
I'm
you
sorry?
create that drawing now without the access from the state highway? To show an alternate plan that could potentially be, I mean, it's a catch-22, right? If you do the other plan, then it's like, well, we don't need that entrance anymore because it's approved. You'd have to make a good, this is the best flow for that site to get that entrance in there, right?
Based on the architect and based on the conversation we have, I believe that it's the best.
Right, but if the state doesn't approve it, then you're stuck in a position where you have one approved plan that you can't complete. So it might make sense to,
The way the site exists and the way the parcel is shaped, it was very, very difficult to get parking to make sense to fit without having the one-way drive. I agree. The other alternative that they proposed was kind of bumping out some parking that would face here, but it's a pretty significant drop-off. They would need to have a pretty large retaining wall, and then that brings into consideration stormwater and runoff with adding that impervious surface there. So that was going to be much more expensive and may not even remedy the overall issue of trying to add parking spaces with having this triangular shaped building to be able to fit vehicles in like that. I understand the point. I mean, I can continue to work with the applicant, but it may be difficult to get a site plan that approaches anywhere near what they require in terms of parking without having it be a one-way drive going through
Hales
the space
Corners
like this.
wouldn't allow access onto their frontage road.
they weren't allowed access.
They were not, we were denied, are they, has it ever been approached?
With this?
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about Hales Corners. I mean, typically, it's
That's the
very
buddy-
difficult to get any,
That's a driveway, that's a road.
right, but, so the state typically allows one driveway in. They're usually very reluctant to provide another. Like,
So I'm thinking
really
of
reluctant. So
frontage
we'd
road
be
there.
approving a plan that's great, that does everything that we want it to, but the likelihood of getting another entrance off a state highway is very minimal. So it may be that you close, so the other, and I don't know what you do, but if you only have one entrance, whether it's a new entrance closing the old one or continuing to use the old one, it makes sense to have a plan. Because what we're asking him to do is we're asking him to do this, which he will potentially physically be unable to do, and then he'll be in violation of the special use.
Come back with a different site plan.
Well, then, but
If
he's
the state
already,
denies it.
but he's already approved to do the special use, and it would be unreasonable for us to deny that special use in the future, sort of, right?
It would just be a site plan modification.
Right. But
You're saying the special use contingent.
which requires, if he's considering putting another business in there at some point, and he's already struggling now with parking, even though there's this idea that you may not need all of the parking,
If I may point out something, because I know the current parking space that is there, based on the information that was given, we are required to have 13 and an additional 9, correct?
I believe that was correct, yes.
So the current parking surface that is there, I believe can accommodate up to 13 vehicles. Nonetheless, it's just the way the land is shaped. It's almost in a triangular
totally
form.
understand, and I understand that we may not even require 22 or 21, right, based on some of the comments here. But if you need 13, do you know what I'm trying to get at? I mean, it's like, if you want to put another business in there and you come forward and say, well, we want to put this other use in there, right? Yeah. And you're already stretching the limits of compliance, kind of a little bit, generally speaking. And the site plan that you're creating, which is really good compared to the other stuff, right, that was previous.
Correct.
If it's sort of a fiction, sort of to begin with, because it may not happen, I'm just trying to prevent you from having to come back here and from them trying to redo and revise site plans, and well, everything that we we pieced together to make it work doesn't work now?
Okay.
'Cause
If
that
I may
tends to be a good one.
reference the next facility after our building, which is an assisted living, there's two entrances on that where you have one going in and one coming out. I'm not quite sure if that would create an objection with the state if we reference that as a parcel right next to each other, having one entrance and an exit, which is,
When was that granted, though? That's the-
Yeah,
So when,
might have been,
That might have been granted a long time ago. I can't remember when that was granted.
exactly.
And unfortunately, sometimes the state's not the most flexible. That's all.
and they
Again,
may
we're-
be flexible, but I'm,
I hope you get approved, but we're just, again, it's a backup plan.
and we're looking at all possible options so we can, come up with a best idea to utilize the space that is there. Just unfortunately, the land is shaped different, and that's not changeable right now, and just.
okay, one condition that is absolutely required, there's a gap. You need to do a survey of your property. I don't know if when you purchased the property, whether there was a survey. Do you see those two blue lines that are parallel to each other? So we have probably 8 to 10 of these throughout the city, and they create absolute heartburn with regard to neighbor relations. Alderperson Kastner and I are
can
very
attest to
well of
that.
that in a neighborhood right now, where there are two subdivisions that were placed next to each other. In this case, maybe there's a subdivision and your property, but when they were filed, they created that gap, which is a problem. So we need to know what the actual, the parcel is to try to remedy that gap issue. One of the problems with those gaps is they extend through right-of-ways and roads too, because the road wasn't there necessarily when the subdivisions were platted, right? So that is going to be critical. You will want to survey your property.
Okay.
And I understand that there's some costs associated with that, but that's a good thing to do, especially if you're making improvements to the property, okay?
Okay.
You'll gain land.
I'm sorry?
Potentially,
You'll gain land,
potentially,
potentially.
okay?
Correct.
And we need to follow up on that. Okay, so there's a motion, I'll make the motion to approve the item as presented with a caveat that the parking issue, the 21 is kind of recommended, but it's subject to reduction by staff to make sure it works by 3 stalls or something, right? Does that seem reasonable?
Sure.
Chance that he could do some of the stuff that was indicated that he would clean up, kind of fix, I understand like the asphalt this winter time, but the trees and some of the, just to,
Yeah, some of the landscaping outside,
like, just get it.
you gotta get those trees out of there, you gotta get the stumps removed properly, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You gotta,
Do you have a time frame set for when you're gonna redo the parking lot and the trees and?
you would have until December 2020, according to you guys, right?
On the screen.
Staff recommends that the site improvements such as the repair of the asphalt and the removal of the trees is prior to occupancy, with the larger site work, like the parking, being done by December of 2020.
But he's already occupying it.
Yeah.
He is already occupying it. But before he,
would be granted conditional occupancy, not full occupancy in the meantime.
All right. Think you can do
But
that?
if we can get the plan approved by both the city and the state, we should be able to get that done this summer. That's something we budget for already and have in place to make sure we expand the parking lot and have the parking done alongside with everything else, which is why we didn't want to aggressively repair to everything that's there, because then they'll be resurfacing everything and just doing the whole parking.
All right. Do we think we understand what he's required to do? Do you understand what you're required to do? So we're gonna prove this evening, you're gonna work with them, right? With regard to some of the site issues and conditional occupancy?
Yep.
And you're gonna have until December 2020 to complete the major work. Yeah, okay?
Sure, thank you. We'll definitely get on the city to get that entrance, and then
Right.
that would be the only hindrance that we, like you mentioned, expect or anticipate. But outside of that, as soon as we get a green flag on that, we should be able to go ahead with the.
It would seem to me, need to make probably contingency plans or start thinking about contingency plans. In the event that the state rejects that opening, you're gonna have to present another plan.
Yeah.
And that's an issue. And we can talk about the timing with regard to that too, right?
Okay.
For now, try to clean it up is really good, okay?
Sure.
And that's important, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a motion, but I guess it is.
It's a long one.
It's a long one.
All right, I'll second your motion.
Second by Commissioner Weiss. Do you understand? Yeah, you guys, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming.
Okay.
Okay, items 12A and 12B is site landscaping architectural plans for Ascension Wisconsin Hospital Greenfield Campus, a proposed hospital to be located at 4935 South 76th Street, as well as the master signage plan for Ascension at that same location.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This application is for site and landscaping and architectural plans for a retrofit for the Barnes & Noble store. Ascension is proposing to lease and complete an $8 million retrofit project. Barnes & Noble's lease ends this summer, and Ascension will enter into a 12-year lease and operate a 24-hour, 7 days a week hospital. Ascension is partnering with Emirus, who specializes in construction and management of neighborhood hospitals. Emirus manages similar facilities, over 25 throughout the country. They serve over 1 million patients and employ 1,600 people nationwide. This particular proposal, Ascension's hospital will have 8 emergency beds and 8 inpatient beds. This is not a trauma hospital. If you are at home and you call 911, the city of Greenfield, paramedics pick you up, they will not be allowed to take you to this facility. They must take you to larger trauma facilities such as Froedtert. Ascension will have contracts with ambulance services for transportation, but those ambulances will strictly be told by Ascension and Emirus that they are to not use their lights or sirens. It's been a discussion, continual discussion we've had with Ascension from day one for this particular project. The most common use of this emergency room is you have an illness, urgent care is closed, you have an injury in the home, and a family member brings you, the patient, to an emergency room. This is the closest one. So that will be the most common use of this facility. The building will also include a medical office and an imaging component. You can see the hospital does take the majority of the square footage, with the medical office building taking about 12,000 square feet, hospital 19,000 square feet, and imaging center about 3,800 square feet. This is just a summary of the staffing, 18 staff members, including 6 ER techs, 6 ER nurses, and 6 ER physicians. They'll have radiology technicians, dietary technician, and administrative staff. They'll, on average, have about 36 patients per day. The projected demand is inpatients, 1 to 2 units, or excuse me, 1 to 2 patients. Imaging department, about 24 patients per day, and transfer to or from this facility to other facilities, about 3 patients per day, and that's where the contract services with ambulances comes into play. As far as the site plan goes, this is one large parcel with 2 buildings. You have a multi-tenant commercial building to the south, north is to the right on this particular picture, and then you have the larger Barnes & Noble building turning into Ascension Hospital. Ambulance intake will be in the back here on the north side. There is a canopy that will signify ambulance with signage. There is plans to build a new refuse enclosure constructed of masonry product with a personnel door, and then plans to construct an 8-foot-high new fence along the western property line, which faces residential homes, and then also landscaping on the eastern side of that fence. And then some new landscaping in the islands, little modification of parking space as it is today, and otherwise that's it for site plan and landscaping modifications. And then also there's a light pole on this portion of the parcel, and they'll replace the light heads with new LED light heads. So the site as it exists today, again, north is up this time. You have two drives in and out of the property. You have a drive on the very north, which is not used as frequently as the main drive here. Today, this drive is a right in, right out, and that will remain. And this main drive is a right and left turns allowed in and out. It's a really busy intersection. Everyone, we all know how busy it is. We have Sky Zone to the east here. And so we did ask Ascension to hire a traffic consultant, and they did, and they did move forward with a traffic study. So the traffic study concluded that a light was not warranted at this mid intersection between Holmes and Edgerton. And there's, I know, a lot of things that the professional traffic engineers take into consideration, but it's like the type of accidents and the number and the day and all those details I don't necessarily know about. But we did ask Milwaukee County Department of Transportation to review the traffic study, and they did agree that a light is not warranted. However, what they recommend that Ascension does is modify this median so that you can do a right, you're going southbound on 76th Street, you can do a right turn in, you can do a right turn out. If you're going northbound on 76, you can do a left turn in. But if you're exiting the site, you would not be allowed any longer to make this north left turn onto 76th Street. So very similar to what Starbucks is going to be doing on Layton. So it eliminates left turn out, which we all hope will help reduce the number of accidents. The traffic study did, however, mention that if the property owner here were to someday get an access agreement with the camera store to the south, that then, you know, traffic, staff, patients, whoever is visiting the site can move forward south and then go to Edgerton, or excuse me, not Edgerton, that's Holmes. And that a light would be warranted at that intersection if they can get an easement agreement between the two properties. So, as far as architecture goes, the building is currently constructed of a CMU block, and what Ascension is proposing to do is paint the block and paint the ephes that's up here that's scored, and they'll modify the towers with some new masonry product design, two-tone brick here. They'll add a decorative canopy up here, and then the emergency room and emergency drop-off pickup drive here. And then on the east side of the building, these towers exist today with Barnes & Noble, again, just retrofitted with a new style, new canopies. And then this tower right here will be a new one for the imaging center so that you can clearly identify the entrance just for the imaging center so you're not walking into the emergency room. So just some different perspectives of the new look of the building. And then a 2D version of the modifications to the building. Item 12B is a master signage plan that Ascension submitted. They're proposing additional signage beyond what the code allows for. So what they're asking for is to reface the Barnes & Noble portion of the pylon sign here. The code does require opaque background at night, and so the proposal does meet that requirement. And then they are proposing a new monument sign on the north entrance. And just we'll have to work with them and engineering, because I think the proposed location is over the one of the storm or sanitary lines, so that it might have to be, it'll be feasible to move. Engineering's not concerned, it just needs to be adjusted a little bit. And then there's some internal directional signage. This sign right here is not illuminated, it'll be up against the building here, kind of guiding the ambulances to go to the north end. And then as far as wall signage, there will be one Ascension sign on the south side of the building, two emergency signs on the canopy, one. I think that was changed. I think it's only one on the south. And then one wall sign saying Ascension on the east side of the building, and then the imaging notation for the northern entrance on the east side of the building. So how I broke it down in the staff report is a total square footage that staff's recommending the plan commission approve, and just like the Mazda master signage plan, if they want to modify a little bit of the text or design, that's fine, just stay within the square footage that was part of the master signage plan. With that, the landscaping species, we're just working with the city forester, and staff recommends approval. This is a permitted use in the C4 zoning district, so the use is not necessarily up for debate. It's just the site landscaping and architectural plans before the plan commission this evening, and this could be expedited to the common council next week.
I just have a question. Seems like we have a lot of medical facilities, and I just don't see how we need another.
I think this they're calling it micro hospitals, is actually a newer concept in the Milwaukee area. That's just what's been communicated to me from the experts. I think there are representatives from Ascension, Emirus, and the architect here this evening. They can better speak to that than I can, but just
Well, there's the urgent care right by Southridge, and there's another one on 76th Street. There's one at 84 South. Where else?
So the difficulty is that it's a permitted use. It's kind of like we have 3 pet stores or 4 pet stores in this market as well. And it just replace hospital with pet store. So if these guys came in with this plan for permitted pet store, we could say all night long that, well, there's already 4 pet stores, or 3, we don't need another one. The reality is, if they want to commercially enter into a lease to have a pet store that they think is going to be better than the other 3, there's not much that you can do or say in objection to that. But I understand what you're saying. I mean, that's the problem, right? So it's been very active. So there's a couple things that are going on with this project right now, right? It's a permitted use. It's subject to site and landscaping. The biggest concerns that we had were the neighborhood to the west, right? So the fence that's going to be installed, currently there's a 6-foot fence, and it's going to be raised to 8 feet, consistent with the stuff further down on Holmes and 76th Street to further kind of block off the neighborhood. And that makes sense. The second thing is the amount of traffic that goes in and out of there. It is a 76th Street, which isn't our road, is a dangerous, fast, lots of turns, lots of conflicts, stretch of road. Everyone agrees with that. Initially, we strongly pushed for a stop signal at this location. It created issues because the signal would have 2 commercial properties on either side of it, as opposed to where you see some of our other stoplights, there's at least a section of city road or other roadway that's not commercial property. Like even at Sendix there, part of that is city road, even though there's an agreement that they maintain it. We were concerned about ambulances.
That's what I was just
So
gonna say.
ambulances, so in Milwaukee County, there aren't any private ambulance companies located outside of the city of Milwaukee. None of them are based there. Many of them tend to be mobile, okay? They're not supposed to be putting their lights on unless there's a true imminent emergency. So they can't put on their lights just because somebody fell at the house and they're giving a transport somewhere. They're supposed to be providing a transporting function, not necessarily an advanced life support function, okay? Which would require an emergent response.
So if it's a life
So
emergency, the patient should not be transported to this facility, even
This isn't
though
the-
it's an emergency
So
facility.
I think the kind of emergency, and they can probably speak to it. So if you're in your backyard and you're working and you slice your finger or you do something, this would be the kind of place that you could go to. If you're in a huge car wreck requiring traumatic care,
The
there's only
helicopter
one
would
trauma
come.
facility in Milwaukee County, which is Froedtert, or the Medical College Froedtert, that we as we're an emergency medical provider, right, as a city, we're required to take them there. It's kind of a ramped-up urgent care, I think, in many respects. Certainly if you're having a heart attack or something, this would be the place to go, probably to be stabilized, and then be transported to a full-service hospital somewhere else. I think the same thing is true with broken arms and legs and cuts and all those other kinds of things that can happen. It's a place, I think, mostly to stabilize. While they do provide surgeries, I think there's 8 beds in the facility for overnight stays. This building is in no way, shape, or form something like St. Luke's or Freighter in any way, shape, or form. It's a model that's, I think, being used in other parts of the country, places like Texas, where Wisconsin, we still like Journey and REO Speedwagon, but some people have moved on to the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And then, you know what I mean? So I think in many ways there's kind of an analogy there sometimes when it comes to healthcare. So, and I guess even the Red Hot Chili Peppers are kind of
I've
old.
heard that.
They're
old,
kind of
yeah.
old school now too, I guess.
Sell their
but-
t-shirts at Target, they're old school.
Are they? Yeah.
You
I
hear it
guess
in
true.
elevators.
So that's the issue. Another issue that's been kind of floating around right now is that, well, we love Barnes and Noble. We just love Barnes and Noble, and you should just keep Barnes and Noble there, and they should stay there, right? So I can't speak for Barnes and Noble. I can tell you that this is an incredibly difficult building for retailers that are trying to downsize. So if you're a bookseller with 30 or 40,000 square feet of retail, or if you're the old Children's Palace, which is what this used to be a long time ago. It used to be a toy store with spires. It looked like a little castle. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I do know.
So the problem is that when they built it basically for a single mid-box user. And when you talk to the folks that own this building, which is HSA out of Chicago, they'll tell you that it can't be subdivided into 3 or 4 users. It's like you can't just cut off 15,000 or 20,000 for Barnes and Noble just because of the physical layout of the building. There's no way to enter 3 different stores, right? That's what they'll say, and most of those
There's
retailers are
always a
incredibly
way.
site-specific. There's been some, so I do that next door thing, and I think a lot of you might do that, right? So there's been all sorts of discussion about, well, we don't think you need another hospital. I mean, that's not sort of our decision to make. That's probably the people that are investing tens of millions of dollars into a facility to make. Whether it's successful or not, I don't know, and we're not here to necessarily judge the successfulness of a business, although we can make our comments, and we often do, all of us. I can tell you that there was an interesting article in the Milwaukee Business Journal this morning or yesterday. So Pick and Save grocery stores, they closed 3 stores in the area, Pewaukee, New Berlin, and another, I can't remember the other one, Delafield or something, or Franklin, or I don't remember where it was, doesn't matter. If you were to look at those buildings, they're very beautiful buildings. They were the highest architectural standards, probably had amazing site and landscaping plans, right? But they weren't viable. And they've been vacant. And they're being filled with things like self-storage centers, which we don't want. One of them is a large secondhand retailer, which is what we have in one of ours on Highway 100. It's probably the same one. And the other one was like kind of a low-value athletic club, right? Low value in the sense that it's not worth much, and the rents are usually pretty tiny for big spaces. So when you kind of look at that backdrop of what big spaces are, I mean, this space at some point is going to be available as a retail space. It's going to be very hard to market as a retail space just because of the problems that it has. It could very well end up vacant, or it could be, you'll get the self-storage people in, and they're everywhere, right? They want to turn everything into self-storage. Those are the worst things to get in your city. It's evident on Highway 100 in Layton. Each one of those units is an individual lease, and once they're created, they're almost impossible to get out. So when someone who comes up from Texas and works with Ascension and wants to spend a lot of money converting a difficult retail space into something worth more than it is now, and will pay taxes, that was another issue, although that's, I guess they're so we can't talk about taxes when it comes to religious institutions, but we can because I don't think the one from Texas is a religious institution necessarily and a co-partner. They're paying taxes on it. I think that's a really, really good thing, and I think it's kind of a home run for the city. And even though when I was online, there were people talking about, I said, well, you know, it's good paying jobs, and somebody said, well, I work there and it's not that great, others pay more. It's like, I mean, it probably pays more than the potential pet store or the bookstore that's there now, I'm thinking, for almost anybody that's gonna be in that business. So I think it's a good thing.
Has Barnes and Noble been looking in the city for a
So
replacement location?
so what happens with all of these retailers, all of them, they don't want you to know what they're doing, and they change their minds constantly. But from what I've been told, and I've heard from people, not Barnes and Noble and not the brokers, is that this is a very vibrant commercial trade area for them, and that they would like to remain in it, if that makes sense.
What about?
But that's, so it's like, well, what about if they go over there? I mean,
Right, at
so
Spring
what,
Mall.
so what happens with the large retailers is they're scouring, right? They have brokers out there looking at every opportunity that there is, and but you don't hear about those things because it's all sort of, because you wouldn't hear about those things until they decide that yeah, that's the place to go. There was also some discussion about well, why don't you put something, I mean, as mayor, you know, with Spring Mall, it's like, well, why don't they put it at Spring Mall? Because they don't want to be at Spring Mall, and they have certain site selection standards, and they have, you know, somebody that's going to do it, right? That's why that happens. Well, why don't they put it at the old Steinmart Plaza on 74th Street? That's a better place for it, because they don't want to go to Steinmart Plaza on 74th Street. They want to be on 76th Street because there's some value to that. Well, why don't you, you know, why isn't there a Woodman's at Spring Mall? Well, I don't know if there's going to be a Woodman's at Spring Mall. I should start that rumor again, right? Get another 180 comments on that, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't know if they want to go there. They might want to go there, and somebody might have looked there, but maybe they don't want to be there now, right? Well, why don't they put this there? Why don't you do this? Why don't you? Because these are all private commercial transactions between people that are investing money, people that are leasing things, people that are making incredible improvements, costly improvements, based on the lease and the credit worthiness of whoever is building something.
So how are we on this site? Has anyone else got any construction comments? Should we make a motion to approve?
Yeah,
I think it fits in for, I mean, from aesthetic looking, it'll fit in with 76th Street.
it'll fit in with 76th Street. There will actually be less traffic based, and I'm not sure if 36 people is real, or if it's 100 people, but there will be less people going into this place and out of this place, significantly less than go in there now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but, I mean, to
No.
lose Barnes and Nobles, but this
That's
is a good
reality.
fit, yeah. It
Yeah.
is reality.
So, I mean,
No,
Barnes,
I think it's a good fit for the site.
yeah, I mean, Barnes and Noble had some trouble like 2, 3, 4 years ago, right? They went through bankruptcy,
Right.
right? So, I mean,
So-
it's not like, so they need to right size probably like some of the other retailers.
Kohl's.
Okay, move on.
Kohl's or TJ Maxx and then the next question that I always get, just so you all understand this, is, because I'll just educate you. Well, why did TJ Maxx move from Greenfield to Greendale? It's like, I don't care if they're in Greenfield or Greendale, as long as they're in the commercial corridor, because as long as the corridor is strong, or the trade area,
Benefits are-
we're all strong. Well, why, you know, did Kohl's leave the mall because Greenfield bought them or bribed them? No, Kohl's made a decision to be next to an interstate in a smaller store. That's why Kohl's went there, from what I can tell, right? So, and I just want to correct the one person who lives in Greendale who said Barnes and Noble is in Greendale. It's not, it's in Greenfield. So,
All right,
so I support this plan, and I understand that there's a lot of chatter out there about it, but it's a permitted use. The only thing within our real control is the site and landscaping of the site, and that has to be reasonable. Can be aggressive, which I think we were in some ways with regard to some things, so, okay?
I think as presented, it's acceptable.
I have no issues.
So, nor do I.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion by Alderperson Kastner, second by Commissioner Weiss. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Motion carries. Item 13B, great, it's another hospital. Site landscaping and architectural plans for Milwaukee Rehabilitation
that coming.
Hospital. A proposed hospital be located at 3200 South 103rd Street, submitted by Alex Bennett. Excuse me, doing business as WB Development Partners and Scott Mayer, QPS Employment Group.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the site where Honda City is parking their vehicles. Former Knights of Columbus building was demolished, and we have a proposal to purchase the building, or purchase the land and build a $15 million, 3-story, 48,000 square foot rehabilitation hospital. The site is actually, it's the purple area, but it also today this is one tax key number, has this little thumb sticking up all the way up to Oklahoma, but underneath the invisible line, there is no line right now. This is all one tax key, but it truly is two different parcels. There truly is a parcel line right here. So the existing owner will maintain ownership of the little outlet, I'll call it, in front of Oklahoma, and WB Development Partners will purchase this 4 acres here and build the hospital. The first part of the agenda item is to rezone this property. It is currently zoned C2, this area, and the proposal is to zone it C4, which would permit hospitals. This would be consistent with what's going on in the general area. You have other hospital and medical office, I should say, medical office building uses across the street with Children's Hospital. There's no residential in the area. It is, I would argue, a commercial corridor, or just a quiet one, because 103rd is a dead end. You have some union buildings to the south, and so I think C4 would be an appropriate zoning for this particular land mass here.
What color is the blue across the street? I'm sorry, what was
Right
it?
here?
Oh, this one.
This?
Yeah,
This is planned unit development.
it could be that too, right?
It could, but it's
Doesn't-
not necessary. The new construction of a building allows any, the Plan Commission, through its approval of a site plan, and the Common Council, through its approval of site plan, allows any variance with setbacks, but those aren't necessary with the proposal. So services included for this particular hospital, against 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, are physical and occupational therapy, the rehabilitation nursing, and speech language pathology. 90% of the patients come from acute care settings. They don't necessarily need to stay in a hospital anymore, but they're not ready to go home. So they would go to this location, stay on an average 12 to 14 days, so they can be discharged back to their home. An example is a rehabilitation hospital, Wisconsin in Waukesha. However, this has inpatient beds. The one in Waukesha doesn't, and there will be 40 beds in this particular location. As far as staffing, there approximately will be 60 people during the day, 40 at night. You can see the various professions that would be in this building. You have nursing and therapy, food service, case managers, administration, pharmacy, and housekeeping. So this is the proposed site plan. Again, we're just focusing on that rectangular shape, not including the thumb going up to Oklahoma. There will be 2 entrances off of 103rd Street, the building being built closer to the freeway on the east. Substantial landscaping. We'll have some rain gardens in the front along 103rd Street. And this is the building footprint. This space right here is, there is going to be a large wall that will look kind of like a building, but it's enclosing the area for refuse and for trucks to go in and out, and for the loading dock. And so you won't see, there will be an opening for the vehicles to go in and out, but there will be a wall here and then a wall all the way around. And it'll blend, you'll see in the elevations, it'll blend in nicely with the building.
Is that the billboard that is there?
No, I think that's the billboard down here.
Is that just gonna be a gate then? Is that what-
It's an opening. I don't think that there's a gate. You'll see in the elevations. And then the lighting, this is the light fixtures, new LED light fixtures throughout the site. So this is the north end. So if you were going southbound on the freeway, this building would be to your right, and this is what you would see, again, going southbound. You have a really nice glass entrance. It's a beautiful building, all brick and glass. And then, so if you were going northbound on the freeway and you'd look left, this is kind of the wall that I was explaining. There is a opening for people to go in and out and walk around. I'm gonna go back to this. There's also like a little garden for people to walk out and enjoy some fresh air while they're staying here. And then this is looking kind of southwest if you were in the parking lot. So 103rd Street is on your right and the freeway is on your left. This is the main entrance here, and again, you get the glass entrance, or the glass portion of the building on the north side. So here's what I was talking about that, so this is looking east, if you're in the parking lot. This is the 2D building elevation, and this is the refuse enclosure area, if you will. This is the opening for vehicles to go in and out of, and the wall mixing and blending in with the building. This is the...
Stay in there.
I did make mentions to the developer that maybe the term Greenfield Campus could be added to the rehab signage on the wall. And
What's it say? I can't even read it.
No.
It says Milwaukee Rehabilitation Hospital or
yeah, we will eventually receive a sign package for for this. Yep.
Are they doing something on either side? Like on
I believe that, yes, that would be the intent. And also, I think that there's interest in having some sort of sign on Oklahoma. So that would be part of the sign package that we'll receive eventually. But
I want to say Milwaukee in it.
Yeah, West Dallas.
and then the north and south building elevations. So that concludes the presentation for the rehabilitation hospital proposal for 103rd Street.
I have a question. So on the landscaping,
Michael,
You gotta turn the green.
loud enough? I usually got a loud voice, sorry.
Thank you.
Does that work?
There you go. Now it's off. Now it's on.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the landscaping, are they gonna have like seating or anything for, because I see there's a walkway? Is there a proposal to do any type of seating or anything, you know, like
Like a bench?
bench or whatever?
I think
Yeah, that doesn't match the actual drawing that you 3D.
Yeah, I
created.
think there's like
But when I looked at 3D, it didn't.
little rehabilitation garden they were calling it here, but I'll let Alex answer that.
Yeah, the sidewalk along the highway was actually a requirement of the fire department, so they could have access. Since we don't have access to that side of the building, they need to be able to access it when they're parked on either side of the building. So that's really the purpose of it. The healing garden on the north end will be there will probably be some benches and stuff out there on the north end. The glass area is the physical therapy gym on the second and the third floor.
It's kind of like really no joke with the Milwaukee Greenfield thing.
No, I know. We're aware. We've had that discussion. So we'll come back with a sign package. We'll have building signage along the highway and a monument sign on 103rd. In talking with Scott, the current landowner, we probably will not have a monument sign on Oklahoma. At some point in the future when he develops, we may do a co-branded sign at that point, but right now we're going to move forward without it.
Love all the windows. Very
Yeah,
nice.
it turned out really nice.
Questions, concerns?
Who's the developer?
Me. Our company is
And that is?
WB Development Partners.
You guys from Texas too?
Yes, sir.
What's your favorite rock band?
What? Yeah. I liked all the ones you referenced, so we're good.
Good answer.
Oldies?
Hey,
Actually saw Journey like 7 times. Can you believe that?
Oh, I know, I saw them a lot too back then.
A public hearing for
one
the
now.
rezoning could be scheduled as soon as February 19th. I forgot to make mention of that.
Okay, entertain so this is another hospital, it's another medical related use.
Kind of different altogether.
One thing that you
Therapy.
kind of learned through the discussions with all these hospital people is that this is really a good side of town, where they're making these kinds of investments because of the quality of people.
Healthcare providers.
Healthcare providers, like everyone, you know, they put stuff where there's a return on investment, and the investment is the people from, the people that live here, right? I mean, there's good people around here.
There's other medical uses on the street. I mean, it fits right.
Right
in the
across the
neighborhood.
street
It
is
fits in the
Children's
neighborhood.
Hospital, right?
Perfect location for
No,
it,
it's a
so I
good
mean-
location adjacent to the freeway. And it also shows that you can do much more if you have green fields, to build things in, right? As opposed to trying to retrofit an old bookstore, an old retail center. But there's still the need to do both, right? You can't tear down 76th Street, turn it into a green field, and then kind of master plan it. You have to kind of.
Are we making an
what you did.
approval or motion? or
That's your
anything?
motion,
I make
sir?
a motion to approve the item as presented.
That's
With
the-
regard to the signage, I mean, that is really an issue, and I'm not joking about that.
Yeah, we're aware.
It's a big issue.
Yes.
You want me to start on the zip code conversation?
No,
I'll
I
second your
do not.
motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Commissioner Weiss, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed, motion
So that was
carries.
13A and B or just 13A?
It's both. And authorize the public hearing process to begin.
That's
at
right.
The date that was mentioned, approve the site and architectural landscaping plan as presented. Understanding that signage is still coming in the future. And as far as some kind of signage along 103rd Street, you own it's your property, right?
No.
No, it is. The thing that,
103rd will have a monument sign. Oklahoma,
Oh,
Oklahoma, we
Oklahoma.
won't.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying if you were down by Oklahoma, that's your property too. So they're in co-brand, and I understand it's a separate distinct property, right? The finger.
We are not purchasing, we're only
You're not
purchasing
purchasing
4
them?
of
Oh.
the 5 acres.
Originally they were, weren't they?
Yeah, they were.
We had talked, we hadn't yet
okay.
decided
All right.
in our initial meetings, but Scott's gonna hang on to the 1 acre along
Okay.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, if you can work out that arrangement, I wouldn't have a
Yeah, and
opposed to that.
that'll be at a later date.
Okay.
Okay, Scott? That's it? I mean, the only really big thing that's happening now is the turf skateboard park. So yesterday we had 2 pretty significant meetings with all sorts, our staff, the skateboarders,
So that, wait, don't we have to?
the marketers, and, I mean, so that's really the coolest project I think that will hit the city. I'm pretty excited. There's some big name marketing and advertising people. I think one of the guys is somebody huge at Nike and the Tony Hawks of the world. It's really starting to come together really well. We hope to have the final quitclaim deed from the state within a little bit, hopefully. We finally figured out the leases on the billboard and the cell phone tower. That's a big, kind of cool thing. The city has not been approached about Woodman's going to Spring Mall officially, if anybody's watching this.
Jeez.
The number one
Yes.
hit on Nextdoor.
Yes.
Seriously, just say it
And asked about it all the time, too.
constantly, right?
The Greenfield Public Market, when they break around on that piece.
Well, so, because there aren't, without talking too much about it, so and Alderperson Kastner has been extremely diligent with regard to that it's the viability of the public market. There aren't a lot of public markets out there. So the developer, he flew out to.
He's traveled the world.
He's traveled to 2 or 3 big things that address
Public
the,
market
right,
symposium.
to look at the financial modeling. I mean, some of the problems are that the modeling, like in California, is like $900 a square foot or something, I mean, it's just like crazy, or it's just nuts, right?
We have the one in Mequon, we have the one downtown.
And he's met, and I believe he's met with folks that have those and food halls locally, regionally, and nationally. One of the issues is how do you structure leases? there's all sorts of stuff. Common area maintenance, I mean, there's all that stuff you gotta worry about, right? So I think before he jumps in, he wants to make sure that it's, well, we gotta make sure it's viable. So there are 2 approved plans now, right? Maybe there's a third, I don't know, but I think, I'm hoping in the spring or summer, I'm hoping that there's a comfort level. I mean, he and I are, I mean, we're pretty, believe it or not, pretty conservative when it comes to this stuff. We don't want somebody just to build something for the sake of building if it's only gonna close in 2 or 3 or 4 years. So we wanna make sure the financials are good, and we really need to make sure they're good.
People will use it, I guess.
I think people will use it, and I think that it'll be incredibly successful, because there's nothing like it around.
No, and the concept with the beer garden next to it, it's a nice fit.
It's perfect, right?
It's a win-win right there.
But sometimes we have to be careful that, you know, it's like getting back to the previous conversation where you say, well, why don't you just build that there, right? Well, it's easy to build something. It's, you know, you got to make sure that you can make, that it's viable, right? Right? I mean, that's so. So, is that fair? Yeah.
Motion
To approve?
to adjourn?
Wait, wait. I just want to make mention that at next month's Plan Commission meeting, hopefully in the next few days, we will be sending all of you the draft comprehensive plan update. It's a long document, trying to give you a month to review it, because we will have that on the Plan Commission agenda next month. And then we will host a public participation meeting at the end of February. I just need to lock down a date with the mayor. And then important to make in your notes, I'll confirm this through email to all of you, but I think we're going to hold a public hearing for the comprehensive plan update in March at the Common Council meeting, which is March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. It has to be a joint Plan Commission and Common Council meeting. So we do need all of you there at the Common Council meeting that evening, March 17th.
A quorum.
A quorum of you.
Yeah, a quorum, excuse. I will confirm that March 17th is the date we're gonna hold the public hearing, and I'll send an email to all of you, but.
And you're not getting paid anymore.
When we did the last master plan, there was a like a neighborhood group 2 that went over the plans.
Well, the public participation is, we'll open that
There
up.
was actually a group. and
I don't know if I can find the contacts, I'll try, but to contact them. It's not as intensive as the original.
Yeah,
The
so
state
when we
statute doesn't
created it,
require
we
as
had-
many steps,
Go on, how is one?
but it's just an update.
So when we
Yeah.
created it, we started from scratch,
Yeah.
and now it's just kind of piecing together.
It's,
It's
yeah.
refreshing.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
And many of the suggested changes may not even be, you know.
Yeah.
It's that,
Ours is that big too.
The group who put that together,
And
are
it's
they gonna come through, walk
not
through, or
something
is
we
it
read
just
every day.
review ourselves? So the group that put it together, are they gonna come and kind of go over it again like they did initially when we first?
Wish me luck, I'll try to find out who those people were.
No.
12
we're
years
talking
ago,
about the
but-
architectural firm.
Oh, the
that developed
consultants?
Sorry, the consultants.
The
talking
con-
about Vanderwall.
Is the consultant coming?
I
Yeah.
was gonna say,
Yeah.
to walk it through at least.
The consultant will give the presentation before you next month.
That's
Not
the
me.
question.
Yeah.
That's why I'm hiring them.
So they can see what the differences are, right, with the open
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, they'll summarize major differences, which there are no major differences, but it's, yes, they will summarize, they'll give a presentation. That's why we hired them. Well,
Make the motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner White,
Aye.
second by Commissioner Collins, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. At 7:34.